On today's N is for Networking, we pause from protocols for a practical perambulation, providing prognostication into the purpose of paying powerful proctors to provide proof of your proficiency. Certs, guys, we're going to talk about certifications today. Should you get a cert? What should you expect if you get a cert? Are certs golden tickets or just a way for vendors to make money from your anxiety? I am Ethan Banks, along with Holly Metlitsky, and I've been doing network for, let's call it a long time. And Holly has been doing network for, let's say, less time. And actually, that's the secret to our format. We ask questions, we share knowledge around here, trying to help you out if you're new to networking via our discussion format. N is for Networking is part of the Packet Pushers network of fine podcasts. Visit packetpushers.net to enjoy a web experience that is uncluttered by pop-ups or chatbots or cookie banners, banner ads, or any other garbage. And by the way, this podcast, we are now publishing this on YouTube in Talking Heads format. Hi, everybody. And if you'd like to see Holly and me chatting, you can go to the Packet Pushers YouTube channel. All right, Holly, the discussion today is certifications, and you've done a bunch of them in recent days. You've just been cranking them out. You tell me, we've talked about this in previous shows. You got like 8 of them or something crazy.
Yeah.
So give us an overall view of your cert experience thus far.
I think I don't know if my experience is maybe a little bit more unique, but because I came through a bit of a training program, it was almost like my certifications were kind of mandatory to become the sales engineer that I am now.
Working for Juniper, that is
working for Juniper.
Juniper wants you in your role as an SE
Yes.
to have a bunch of certs so that you go in
Yeah.
armed with knowledge and can help customers more effectively. Is because kind of the big idea.
Yes. And I think my experience overall was pretty positive. I found that some of the certs specifically gave me a really good base knowledge to move forward in networking in general. Even though all my certs are Juniper specific, they definitely build some of the basics. However, I would caution you to rely solely on certs for all of your knowledge, because as much as I did do multiple certifications, a lot of my knowledge actually came from like field work and referring back to, I actually learned this in that first associate cert or things like that. So.
Yep. And I know you've expressed, as you've recorded a bunch of shows with me here and N is for Networking, that there were some practical holes, like you understood how to config X, but didn't know how or context or why you might do a particular set of configurations.
Yeah, exactly that. I think that was my biggest, I don't want to say issue with certifications because I didn't know it at the time, but coming out of it, I really learned that I had the knowledge of how to do things, but not why. I think that's really crucial. The why was missing in a lot of my learning.
Okay, that's a point I wanted to bring out because that is not a criticism of cert programs at all. What it is it points out that having the certs isn't the same as having experience.
Yeah,
Certs are important.
Exactly.
Great foundation of knowledge, but getting in the field will be an important part of your development as a network engineer, is getting out there, building things, running into problems, things breaking, making mistakes, and that enhances your knowledge in a way that certs by themselves don't. It's kind of the same thing with a university degree or college degree.
Yeah.
You go out, you get your 4-year degree, you can even get your master's, but until you get into the field and apply all that theory you've spent time in the classroom learning and writing reports on and all the rest, it's still theory. And there's just things you didn't even know were things until you're in the real world, so to speak, and they're hitting you in the face.
I think another thing that just popped into my mind is, again, all of my knowledge is coming from my Juniper experience. So I'm not sure how other vendors and other certs go about this, but there were labs often attached to certain lessons or certain, things that they wanted you to test out. I don't know if all training has that, but mine had a lot of labs. However, my issue with the labs is I don't think I, at the time, understood the importance of doing it wrong. Because often you get the CLI commands and you can plug them in and you can, and everything works. But I didn't take the time to say, okay, I'm not actually going to look at what they're telling me to do. I'm going to take like the general idea and then try and figure it out on my own in the lab, break it,
Hmm.
and then see
Hmm.
how I can fix it. Which, hindsight's always 2020. And I think now if I'd done that, that might have also helped that practical knowledge. If you're not in the field and you're just doing certifications, using that lab environment to get that hands-on experience would be helpful. I also don't think I had the confidence to break things yet. So there's that too.
I completely agree with you in that breaking things is where you learn stuff, either when you break things on purpose or where things just break in real life and you got to fix them. That means you have to take what you know and apply it in a very real, hands on way. And if you understand how it works and what's going on, you can fix the broken thing. And if there's holes in your knowledge, the broken thing is going to reveal where those holes
Yeah.
are. So I'm with you 100%. And if you have a lab opportunity, you're not hurting anything. You're not. This isn't production where you're worried about downtime. Go break the thing, make an absolute disaster out of it, and then what are you going to do to recover? That's exactly. You see
Yeah.
what you learn, see what you can figure out. That's the point of it. And I also agree because I've both taught some classes and have been in a lot of classes over the years. You're right. The exercises they give you in the classroom environment, those canned labs, are like, type this, you should see this result. Type this, you should see this result, and so on. And yes, there are things you will learn from that, but it just works. It should just
Yeah.
work. And often, if it doesn't work, the instructor will come over and go, "Oh, your virtual machine's hosed. We got to just restart you." And they kind of blow away whatever you've got there and give you a new image, and off you go. And then it works the next time. You're like, "Yeah, but I want to know why it didn't work last time." And, and the instructor's just like, "We got to get through the material. Let's go, go, go." As opposed to if you're on your own time in your own lab, you can fiddle with all kinds of things and break it and experiment and see what happens and so on. Okay, so do you think, or what's your take on the respectability of different certs, Holly? Because I know you're new to this, and I want to get your. I mean, I have a lot of opinions, but I'm just curious as
Yes.
you're new and looking at the world of certifications and networking, what your take is.
I think from what I've seen, like having a CCIE or one of those like expert level certs used to be really, really respectable, and like you were really, really cool if you went through that. Um, I don't feel encouraged or pushed towards doing that. Um, I'm not sure if it's just different nowadays or most people have those. No, not most people, but a lot of people
Hmm.
have them, and it's people haven't been renewing them either because it's a ton of
Mm,
work. Um,
mm,
and there's definitely a part of me that wants to get to that level
yeah.
in the to say that, hey, like I've got this really cool certificate, and I've gone through all that it takes, which is a lot. But that there's another part of me where that's a huge time sink, and I need to really understand the value that that's going to add to me to be able to put in all those hours. And I'm not sure if I can
Mm.
match those two.
You are so right. So I will say this. So for those of you listening, if you're new to the world of certifications, there tends to be from most vendors three, maybe four different rungs on their certification ladder. There's an entry level rung. I know Cisco has that. Like there's a CCENT, for example.
Mm.
That's like pre CCNA. But then the next rung above that is CCNA, the associate level. Then above the associate level, there's the professional level. CCNA in the Cisco world is, I think, two exams. I haven't looked at it in a while, to be honest. It used to be one. One like big whacking exam, and it might still be one, but I think it's two. Or you have an opportunity to break it up into two if you include CCENT or something like that. Anyway, it's the quote unquote easy one. Only there's so much to know if you're new to networking. It's brutal. CCNA is tough. You got to really learn a lot of stuff. But then the professional level certs, there's a series of exams you have to pass to get awarded the professional level cert, and you're getting deeper into stuff at that point. You're diving into routing protocols, and you're diving into switching, and you're diving into a bunch of services and other things on a deeper level where you're expected to know a lot more than you learned at the associate level. It's like associate level plus, okay, let's dive into a lot of the topics you were introduced to at the associate level and go deeper. We're going to get right
Yeah.
into stuff. And then what you were just alluding to, the expert level certs, CCIE or Juniper, the JNCIE, um, those are ridiculous. I don't know current stats. I know it used to be for professionals who were certified, only 3% of people would actually bother getting the expert level
Yeah.
cert because of exactly what you said. They're ridiculous. So I am a former CCIE. Well, technically you're always a CCIE, but you're either
Yeah.
active or inactive. I haven't been active for several years. I kept the cert for like 9 years and then stopped recertifying because I didn't really have a reason to have it, and I tried 3 times to pass the stupid recert exam, and it was like, "Okay, every time I come back, the exam is substantially different. I get that the question pool is huge, but guys, if you don't show me exactly the weak bits that I'm supposed to go and study up on, how am I gonna pass this thing if it's like random te—" Anyway, they've changed. Sir, that was before Cisco changed how you do recert for IE. Now you can do learning credits and a bunch of other things, and it's not nearly as difficult to recertify as it used to be. It still work, but not like it was. We used to call it the trivia exam. Cisco's like
Yeah.
some esoteric little detail thing they pulled off of page 452 of the documentation manual of BGP. I'm sorry, guys, I missed that detail. My bad. Well, it's CCIE. We can ask anything. I know you can, but come on.
But it's that's the other thing is like those types of questions, how is that going to help you on the day to day? Like I just think that a lot of those like little questions, those little random tidbits of information that like 5 people in the world are going to remember, that's not really going to benefit you in any like if I can Google it and find, I don't know, the number of routes and a whatever, or like, things that aren't adding troubleshooting capabilities or fundamentally helping my understanding. I just think that's a waste of a question. And maybe that's a hot take. I don't want to like anybody who has these fancy
It
certs, I don't mean to offend anyone, but it's those questions that just like you're like, what am I don't know. And then you fail it because, well, you didn't know the exact specific number to this.
it is a bit of that. I don't disagree with you. Where what is the practical nature of needing to
Yeah.
know all these esoteric details? On the other hand, Juniper and Cisco and anyone else doing their expert level certs are trying to differentiate that program. So going back to the original question, are all certs equally respectable? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Some are looked at differently than others because of the difficulty they are to acquire, and because the what the community feels that the certification actually proves as far as your ability is different depending on the program, people's individual experience, either with the program because they went through it or because they've worked with people who hold the certification and have an opinion about what that cert means based on their working experience with that certification holder.
Do you think any of that is also linked to perhaps people's view of vendors? Because obviously Cisco is one of the larger vendors, so it's I don't want to say more reputable, but it's definitely more well known.
The view of vendors definitely plays into it in that
Mm,
depending on the certification program. Well, let me back up a step. All vendors use certification programs in part from a marketing perspective. That
yeah,
is, if like you're Juniper certified, if you now let's say and you work for Juniper, it all makes sense. But let's say you didn't work for Juniper, you were a consultant, and you walk into a shop. And because you're Juniper certified, what is a solution you're likely to lead with because of familiarity? Probably Juniper, right?
yep.
Well, that's what Cisco did for years and years. I worked for a Cisco partner. I worked for a lot of companies for whom Cisco was the primary networking vendor. And what was the solution I tended to lead with since I actually collected a bunch of Cisco certs over the years from the associate level right on up through CCIE. Well, Cisco, it's the products I knew. I knew how to do all the configuration stuff you were talking about and and all the rest. So that is a thing to understand. about these certs, you got to remember that vendors train you because they want you to push their solutions as a technical expert when you walk into a site. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's like good business. That's smart, you know.
Yeah.
But you as the practitioner need to understand it's not really about you. It's about you being in the vendor's army, so to speak, kind of like a soldier, you know, boots on the ground, you know, go in, waving the flag, waving the banner, you know, for that vendor because it's where you're confident. It's what you were trained on. It's a very smart business solution as far as I'm concerned. I'm not. This isn't a criticism. It's just like, but if you're
Yeah.
new to this world, that is the right way to think about it and to understand that that's a component of what you're dealing with. It's not just about your career. It's also about the vendor and their success. Um, so going back to the, you know, how do people view these certs because they're coming from a vendor? Um, it depends. Cisco, for a lot of years, was the gold standard in training and
Yeah.
certifications. Most of the program that you went through was, yeah, you did the configuration on Cisco gear, uh, but it really wasn't about Cisco stuff overly much. I mean, they had sales certifications and things for that kind of stuff. Like, we need you to know every switch in the Catalyst line or the Nexus line or whatever it was. And there were programs for that. That was not what CCNA, CCNP, CCIE were really all about. But over the years, it has gotten more that way. It's also gotten more that way in that networking is less standard from vendor to vendor now, compared to what it was even 10 years ago. Now, a lot of vendors are selling solutions that are unique proprietary solutions that may, under the
Yeah.
hood, have some standards that are employed to make them do what they do, but it's all been dressed up with a fancy GUI and with automation to deliver microsegmentation and, you know, unique security capabilities, things like various fabrics that almost every vendor's got one of now, or a software-defined WAN or SASE solution. That again, there's probably some standards-based protocols under the hood, but the way they're implemented are very vendor specific, and the experience is similar but unique vendor to vendor. And they're training you on that stuff so that you use their stuff. And
Yeah.
so is that respected? You know, it it kind of
Well,
depends.
I've got three. I think three of my certs are Juniper product specific.
Yeah.
They are Mist AI certs.
Mhm.
But if I'm not at Juniper, w- I don't know if those are, I think it gives me credibility in the sense that I can understand how to navigate my way around a certain management platform and
Mhm.
I can do certifications and, like have a certain level of knowledge. But is that really transferable to other vendors? I'm not so sure about that.
There'll be concepts that are transferable, but the specifics, no, almost certainly
Yeah.
not. But in a general sense, like maybe I don't know what's in the Mist AI certs, yeah, but if there's a section on like how to pull information out of the Mist AI database using an API, well, there's some programming and automation bits that you can conceptually lift from that, and even though the specifics are different, transfer that to another
Yeah.
platform since pulling data via an API has become an increasingly common thing. You know, maybe I don't know if the Mist AI stuff talks about Wi-Fi specifically or not, but there may be some
It's,
Wi-Fi
yeah.
fundamentals and about like radio theory and 2.4
Hmm.
gigahertz and the other frequencies, 5 and 6, and how they
Yeah.
factor into things, and maybe how you do a wireless site survey, and you know, and yeah, it's all in the context of Mist AI, but there's going to be bits you can take that are going to be common because every Wi-Fi radio system uses those frequencies and complies with specific Wi-Fi standards. But then, as you say, if it is a lot about how to get around the interface, I mean, right, every interface is unique per vendor, per software solution. And even within vendors, they have sometimes competing solutions because of acquisitions or something that are
Yeah.
like, you can't even use Mist AI with, I'm speculating here, some other product that Juniper might have that does a similar thing. And you'd be like, I got to learn that thing from scratch. Yeah, you do. So, um, but going back to respectability, I will say this: my take on the expert level certs, certainly CCIE and JNCIE, they are extremely difficult for a reason. And when you earn those certs, specifically the expert level certs, those tend to open doors that other certs don't,
Yeah.
because the expert level certs are so hard to get, and there are a number of employers, bars, value-added resellers, partners that, the consultant army, if you will. You call these folks because you're doing a new data center build, and you want someone that's got hardcore data center chops to walk in the door and give you the latest on what's what and help you build the thing. And they're bringing in you because you're the JNCIE that knows everything that's going on. And there's not many of those people at that level in the world. If my stat from the past is still relevant today of 3%, that's just, you really set yourself apart. But they're hard to get if you're new. Like, if you're listening to NS for networking and you're new to networking, you don't start out getting your expert level cert. I mean, you can be like really young and go get them. There's even I don't know who the youngest CCIE was. I believe a teenager though. And I know some guys that are in the like early 20s and they're going after it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But as we were saying earlier, the experience part of it is the thing that really makes you, beyond the knowledge that you get from the certs, that really makes you that expert, is that hands-on time, making mistakes, breaking things,
Yeah.
troubleshooting the down network. And so, but yeah, the expert level ones are uh, certainly respectable.
Yeah.
There's other certs like on the Packet Pushers network. There's another podcast called Packet Protector, and they just did one on security certifications, like which ones should you get, which ones aren't really worth the time, and so on. I know there was a thread on LinkedIn about that too that I had kicked off
Mm.
because someone I know had asked me about that. And I'm like, oh, I haven't kept up with security certs, honestly, so I've lost track. But CISSP had come up as like that. It's still pretty well regarded, well respected. But again, other ones, not so much, not so much. So you gotta, just because it's a cert, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go get that one. Yeah, do your homework and find out what the community
Yeah.
thinks of that cert before you decide that you really want to do it or not, because it may not be like I don't know, may not be much of a thing that's
Which
worth your time or money.
I think it's also a good thing to think about, like, why are you getting a cert? Is it just to, I mean, you have to. Maybe you're at an employer who says to get to, I don't know, X level, you have to have these certifications. Is it just because you think they're a cool label, or do you think it's going to further your knowledge? Um, and I think that's important to know because I frequently go back and forth with, should I get another cert? And often it's a tough question because is it going to further my career at this very moment? I don't think so. I think I need to gain more knowledge before I can truly apply it to what is the next cert that would be beneficial to me. But would I like another cool one to add to my list? For sure. But I don't know if that's a good enough reason.
uh, when I was very early in my IT career, even kind of before networking was its own path,
Yeah.
or it was a rare path, I'll put it that way. I did certifications because it helped me. It gave me opportunities I couldn't otherwise do. There was a network operating system that was really popular in the mid '90s and kind of into 2000 called Novell. You'd run Novell servers and you'd run NetWare clients. And to be able to build a Novell NetWare network was a thing. It was hard. There was email that went along with it if you wanted as an option. They called it GroupWise, and you could be like this all Novell shop. um, a lot of certification and training programs available for that stuff. And I went and eventually became a certified netware engineer. Yes, see, I was a certified netware engineer for. This goes back a lot of years, and Novell's
Mm.
more or less they still exist, I think, but they're effectively a dead company, even though they were huge in IT 25 years ago. Um, that helped me as a consultant understand and be able to talk to clients and make recommendations and troubleshoot problems and fix servers when they broke, and make recommendations about things like, to run this version of NetWare 4 with NetWare directory services, you should have this much CPU and this much RAM and this kind of a disk drive system because you guys have 350 users serving this department, and that's going to be the right fit. Without the cert, you're kind of like, you call someone. Well, I was the one you called to come up with
Yeah.
those answers, at that point. Then it was Microsoft. I did Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer before, and that opened a bunch of doors that I wouldn't have had because it allowed me to do work when Novell was dying. Microsoft was vacuuming up all of those dying accounts. They're like, oh, you're struggling with NetWare? How about we go all Microsoft? We'll do it for cheap. And Microsoft just, they killed Novell effectively. Okay, that's another podcast for history sometime, but because we could argue that Novell kind of did themselves in with terrible marketing, even though they had a superior, many would argue, product to what Microsoft was offering at the time. Doesn't matter. My point really is I use certs to get into technical
Mm.
opportunities at that time as a young engineer that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I still feel that for young, aspiring network engineers, having certs is a way to demonstrate competency because you don't have a resume that demonstrates competency yet.
Yeah.
Now, on the other end of my career, now that I've got basically 30 years of experience I can point back to, and accomplishments and things that I've done, uh, where would certs help me? Well, in like very new technologies, maybe, or in stuff that I don't have resume work that I could demonstrate yet that I've done anything. Like in my case, I haven't done a lot of cloud work. I haven't done a lot of work in AWS or Azure. So even though I'm been around for a long time, forever, not forever, but a long time, then should I go get some AWS certs if I wanted to do AWS work? Yeah, I think that would be helpful for me, if I did that, and I've looked at them and gone, "Yeah, but I don't wanna." So so I haven't. So I haven't.
You've got to be committed. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I think that's no matter what level of cert you're getting, there's always going to be a certain level of commitment and time that you really have to give to it, even if it's an entry level cert. Sometimes some of my like associate level certs actually required more time than maybe a specialist level because you're building a foundation. So I know we did discuss this, but with regards to the like respectability of different certs, just because it's not a expert level doesn't mean that it hasn't added considerable amount of value to your resume or just
Mhm.
your general experience and knowledge.
Yeah. Wha Another point, you said building a foundation. Do you feel like as you have added certs to your collection, they've gotten easier because a certain amount of base knowledge you got in the other certs?
Some of them,
Mm,
um, I think some jumped a little bit too much for me, where I think it was I went from the JNCIA, which is just General Associate Basics of Networking, to I think it was like a Specialist Enterprise cert, to be very specific. But the
mhm,
jump between those two was crazy. It was I kind of know a little bit about routing and switching to okay, let's dive really deep into all of these things. And
mm,
I had a very fundamental knowledge, but I hadn't really played around in a network enough to be able to go dive really deep. And because I was going through a training program that was stacking up these certs, I don't think I had enough time in between to gain the
mm,
knowledge of applying that base level cert to then go, okay, I'm actually ready to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Where others, I was like, okay, I've got the fundamental knowledge. The specialist one, I'm like, oh, this relates to this basic topic. I understand now how we get from A to B, and that was great. But sometimes there was a big jump.
mm. Yeah, you're describing my experience too, and it really depends on the nature of the cert as well. So a bunch of certs I did back in the day had that building effect. Like if you do associate level cert, then jump into professional. Well, you're going to take everything you knew in associate and apply it into professional, but in a much deeper way, as you described. But there's certain things that you should have learned, and you should have
Yeah,
you would have gained a comfort level already as you move into the professional level, even if it was a bit too deep as you were describing, or maybe
yeah,
maybe too big of a jump, but there's still you're building foundationally. Up at the expert level cert, when I did my CCIE, it was focused on routing and switching technologies. And then some people were like, "Hey, you should do the service provider CCIE." At the time, they had that was another one of the tracks because it's a lot of the CCIE route switch stuff, but we throw in MPLS and whatever else the other technologies were. And I was just like, uh, tempting because it's like, man, I did all this work to get through the route switch program. Do I want to add service provider? And I thought real hard about it, and then ultimately
Mm.
didn't, because life got busy, and I just couldn't stay focused on that. That I couldn't continue with that degree of dedicated focus on study because I it took me 16 months to get through the CCIE program of very
Wow.
hard work. Yeah, it was a lot of work to do that. But again, that additive component, once getting one cert can help you in another cert because of the knowledge you gained, and it can get easier. Some of the other certs I did, they just weren't that related. Like I remember I was working on a cert for Microsoft Exchange 2000. Didn't pass the stupid test. It just wasn't. There was I got a ton of stuff thrown at me in the class. I wasn't living and breathing Exchange 2000 every day, and there was just too much, and I was, like, close to passing, but not quite enough, and I don't remember if I ever passed it. I got a notebook somewhere with all my exam score reports in there. I should go back and look and see if I ever got there. Citrix was a company that had a product called, Metaframe, and you used it to basically remote. Back when bandwidth was scarce and some people were dialing in modems, and you needed a way to have them use an application with a very low bandwidth scenario. You'd use Citrix Metaframe to supply them basically an image of the app that was actually running on a server in a data center, and they just send KVM across their crappy dial line from wherever they were dialing in from, people out in the field doing whatever. Well, I was trying to certify on Metaframe, and I was a Metaframe admin. I was building applications every day. I was dealing with banks of modems. I was supporting people in the field. I mean, I knew this product well, and I thought I knew it well. I went to a class to kind of bump my knowledge. I'm like, I'm going to go take the test because, yeah, why not? Let's go be a certified Citrix Metaframe administrator or whatever the thing was. I wasn't even close because I didn't take it seriously. I thought I was just gonna nail it. I thought I like had it. And that's another thing about certs that's really interesting, um, to me, Holly, is certifications will force you to learn things about the product or the technology that you may not run into in day to day
Yeah.
because you're as a business, you'll use whatever components of the technology that you need to supply to meet the business's demands. But there's probably 15 other things it does that maybe you never touch because you don't have the use case for them. In the CERT program, you'll have to know the 15 other things. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah. Which is one of the things that I think about frequently. I think about like, okay, if I spend 10 years in the field and I gain all of this networking knowledge, I don't think I could just jump into any certain pass it based on just experience, like playing with the stuff day to day. Like you said, oh, you use this product all the time, but you couldn't pass the cert. Because
Mhm.
sometimes there's just so many other factors that perhaps you just never came across. And there's 10 questions on that specific area that you just never looked at or you've never worked on.
And the question set you get are in modern days, they're randomized with
Yeah.
massive question pools because the vendors want to discourage cheating or brain dumping, where you can
Mm-hmm.
go out and you can buy a database of questions that supposedly come right from the testing centers. And the vendors are trying to protect against that, and so they rotate out questions all the time. There's new fresh questions coming in. Some of the questions you get in exam might be basically beta test questions. They want to see the training providers and the vendor training programs actually track the results right down to individual questions and have a sense of, based on the difficulty level of this question, we feel it's a good question if only half the people get it right. If 75% of the people get it right, it's probably too easy. We should make it a little harder. They actually have that level of logistics that go
Wow.
into their tests. And they also have algorithms now that they can detect if you're cheating. Like, we're pretty sure you just memorized a bunch of questions off the brain dump because you're ripping through these way too fast. Those are protection mechanisms that exist now that didn't used to exist back in the day, and brain dumping was rife. You could buy a question data. I
You
haven't
still
checked in a long
can.
time. I assume you still can. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's still a thing.
Which you're
Um,
paying for a certification. Like, okay, fine. You want to up your value, but what a waste of time to go and just pay for all the questions and answers and learn all, like, just rote learn them. I don't know. It's
if
so
you're
much
trying to
time and you're really
be
not gaining much
Yeah,
besides
I
the
agree.
certification.
I do agree. Brain dumping devalues a certification for yourself for sure,
Yeah.
because you're learning the answers to questions. You're not actually learning the thing that you're supposedly being certified on.
Mhm.
But I do understand the other side of the argument, which is I work for a partner. They need me to have this cert. I don't
Yeah.
care. I just, and so they're happy to go cheat and just to memorize the questions so they can get the cert and make their employer happy. And I know that's a thing that happens to people, or
Mm.
people are just stuck for time and they're stressed. And it's like, I don't have time for this studying and labbing and all that stuff. I don't actually care. That's not the thing. That's not the consultant kind of work that I provide for my clients. I just have to get this cert because we need it to retain our partner
Yeah.
certification, which is a thing. If you're listening to this, value-added resellers, partners, if you're like partnered with Cisco, you're partnered with Juniper, whoever, often those programs require you as a partner to have a certain number of certified people on staff at various levels. You got to have a certain number of expert levels, certain number of professional level, etc. Depending on the partner level, that can impact discounts you might be eligible for as a partner to be reselling their hardware, let's say. And so you might get an extra half a point or a point, which, depending on how much metal you're moving in the course of a year, could be significant to your bottom line. You got to have those people on staff. It can also impact how much work a vendor might throw your way. You're Cisco, and someone's come up and there's a pretty significant data center deal in Austin, Texas, just to make up a city. I don't know, wherever, somewhere. Oh, we know this reseller that supports the Austin area that is a good fit for this data center build. If you're that partner, you want that deal. You're going to make money
Yeah.
on that deal. You're going to sell services. You're going to move some metal. That's a big deal. Cisco's not sending you that deal if you don't have the right people on staff with the right credentials. They're not. That's the way that. Ask me how I know. I used to work as a Cisco partner. I was the engineering manager at the time. And all of a sudden, our deals started drifting away. It's like, where are they going? Well, there was someone new in the area that had more people on staff. I was like, oh, I think I see what's happening here. Kind of.
Which that makes sense to me. I guess going back to what I said earlier, it's why are you getting the cert? If you're doing it to really up your knowledge, like, don't go buy a brain dump, you know?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like you're not getting
And
anything.
that's
But if you really are just checking a box because you have to, fine.
you shouldn't, but
I won't judge.
we get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get You will judge, though. I can see it in your eyes. You will judge. I can see it.
I'll need a 2-page
Holly will
explanation
judge
as
you.
to why. And
All
I
right, let's talk
expect you
about
to know the
money.
answers to all the questions. If you're gonna pay for the dumps, like, best you know every single question
You
that's coming up.
exactly.
Just
Let's talk about money, Holly. Let's talk about money. How do you
yeah,
get certs paid for? What's been your experience so far?
employer paid for all of them.
Yep. Entirely or
But
partially?
no, entirely. Except it wasn't really like, oh, it's a free for all, get as many certs as you want. It's comes out of my manager's budget. So whatever, he's got a budget to spend on his SEs for all sorts of things.
Hmm.
Certs, maybe events, maybe other things. And I can then get that cert approved to say, okay, we'll take money out of our budget and you can go ahead and do that. Um, I also think internally, which I think other people doing certs may have this access as well. You can take practice tests and other things that get you discount vouchers if you get over a certain percentage. So I used to do all of the voucher tests to discount the cert for I don't quite know why, because I'm discounting it for us to pay ourselves, but anyways, I did the voucher tests. I did those too, and you put in a little code and things are a little bit cheaper then. Um,
Internal business unit accounting, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's coming under the big umbrella that, but yeah, the individual BUs have their own reporting to do, so they care, even though it in the big picture doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not sure if everybody uses Pearson, but all of my certs were done through Pearson as like a proctor service, or they would host all of the testing through it.
Did you
So
ever go to a testing center, or did you all use remote,
no, I
like
did
on
all of
camera
mine
kind of thing?
remote.
Yeah.
That's a whole different story. Let's get through how you pay for them, and then we can go to
Okay.
the remote experience of taking certs.
So I just wanted to throw out there that there are ways to get your certs paid for in if you kind of know to ask the question and look around. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily all out of pocket. It may be that may be your only option really, but there are ways to get some certs paid for. One is an employer. Now, if you're new and you're trying to get a job and break into networking, okay, I get it that you don't maybe that's not an option for you, but a lot of employers will have a perk of things like we'll send you to college to help you with your undergrad or your master's degree, something like that. And you'd be like, oh, well, I want a professional certification. Oh, okay. Well, we look at that kind of like a master's degree. We'll contribute towards that. That's a thing. Partners, or in like you work for Juniper. They want you to be certified. They covered it. That just was
yeah.
handled.
Which I think I
Partners are
could
similar.
ask. I haven't tried, but I'm pretty sure if I went to my manager and said, "Hey, I've been working a lot on Azure as an integration platform. I'd like to get certified in this, so I'm better at dealing with my customers." I think we could have that conversation. So if
Mhm.
you are working for a vendor and you want to get certified in something that is not your product specifically, I would still try and have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask the question. Just
Yeah,
see. Your manager will know if there's an internal program, a benefit that you can leverage, you can take advantage of. That could be a big thing. Vendors can help, or your employer can help you in other ways too. I had an employer who was very interested in me getting some certs, even though they weren't a partner, didn't mean anything to them in that sense. They just wanted me to have the knowledge, and we had moved between data centers, had a bunch of leftover gear, and they're like, "You can throw that leftover gear in some spare rack space and use it as your lab if you want. We won't charge you anything for it. Just go for it, man." So I did. I took full advantage of that. That was before the days of everything's virtualized and you can kind of run a
mm,
lab in your laptop or in the cloud or something. You couldn't really do that, and so that was a big deal to me. Instead of me having to like try to buy switches and routers and firewalls and stuff to make a lab, I had a bunch of stuff sitting in a rack that my employer was, kind enough to let me use. I was able to VPN in after hours and hit that lab. It was kind of awesome. And that's the thing. Ask the question. A manager that gets what a certification brings to the table and knows that you're an employee that wants to better yourself in that way is likely to support you however they can,
yeah,
whether it's through official corporate programs, hey, here's money, or just other ways that they may say, hey, we'll let you, if you don't have any other big projects going on, spend some of your time during the day studying. That's okay with us. We want you to have this knowledge that can be supportive of you in that way. Another thing to look out for, your local governments, or federal government as it may be, there may be some program out there where, hey, we're trying to get more people involved in the technology field, and you're not educated that way, but we want to get you into some kind of a networking academy or some kind of a training school that does training for these certifications. And here's a pool of money, and if you apply and qualify, you might be able to take advantage of that and get it paid for that way. Those come and go. And I'm not up on that currently to know where the state of that is. I do know back in the days when I was doing some instruction, that's how a lot of people that were in the classroom sitting in front of me were there, because there was some kind of a government program where we're just trying to get people educated so that they can get out there and in the field, because we have a need as a country in this area and we're just short people. So that's a thing. I don't know if you run into
that's a
that,
cool
Holly.
one. No,
Yeah. It's one of those you got to ask and just poke around and see what you can find out. But there's different things run at different times. So yeah, it's worth asking. Um, well, vendors sometimes have their own programs. Like before we recorded, I think you were telling me from Juniper's perspective, if you're Cisco certified already, Juniper will help you. I don't
Yeah.
know if convert's the right word, but they'll you can use your Cisco certs as a bridge to get to Juniper certs.
Yeah, from what I understand, and we there's some program that we offer where it either discounts heavily or gives you the training for free and discounts maybe the cert process. Which this comes back to what you said earlier about building your army. Um, there are way more people who have Cisco certs than those who have Juniper. It's just a bigger company. So there's a lot of push to try and get more people to say, hey, we actually understand the Juniper stuff. So maybe you just want to get certified on a different vendor. I definitely look into, you know, competitors for where you work or what you're interested in and see if there are any of those conversion programs. It's not converting because it's not going to take away your other certs.
Mm.
It's just saying, we know you've done the work here. So how about we help you out and get this one as well?
Make it easier for you to get yeah, get our cert. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Another thing to look out for on those vendors is there's specials all the time. There's various things
Yeah.
that come and go throughout the year, whether it's just steep discounts on training or opportunities to get free training. Maybe there may be if you talk to your rep. Like, say you work for a company and you're a Juniper shop or a Cisco shop, and you go, "Hey, I'm interested in getting some training. Can you throw in some learning credits as part of the buy because we're going to do a Wi-Fi refresh or whatever?"
Yeah,
That's the thing that can happen. I don't know. Do you ever get to throw? I
definitely.
don't know if Juniper do learning credits? Is that a
Yeah,
thing? Yeah,
for sure.
and that.
And I think there's also, if you are dealing with a rep, ask for boot camps. A lot of these companies like offer boot camps on from like hardware specific or software specific products to just general basic stuff for just expand your knowledge, and your sales rep is definitely going to want to throw that in for you because that means you are more likely to buy their product. So
Mhm.
I think, always ask. If you've got something on your radar, find someone and ask them. Everybody wants you to be better at what they sell. So it's always
Exactly.
worth finding someone.
Yeah, the vendor wants the product you buy to be sticky. If you're trained
Yeah.
on it and you get really confident and good at it, and you can really make that product sing and dance, they know you're going to keep it, and maybe you're going to buy other stuff too and be a more loyal customer. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we've had over the years of me buying stuff, we've had pretty good luck with talking to a vendor going, "Hey, can you throw in a class for this? Can you throw in learning credits or whatever?" And like, yeah, 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 we'll definitely do that. Or sometimes it comes with an asterisk of, "You're gonna sign by the end of the quarter, right?" And if we
Yeah.
throw this in, sometimes that happens, but yeah, 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 it's a good thing to do. And I know if you're sitting there going, "I'm still trying to break into the industry. I don't have an employer with a relationship, with a vendor, blah, blah, blah." We understand. Just saying, if you're in there and you're looking at certs, just be aware of the opportunities that are out there. Because of course, ultimately, you can just pay for your training and
Yeah.
pay for your cert out of pocket, right? That is the way. My first cert was going back to Novell school was how I broke into doing. I mean, I had a computer science degree, but it wasn't programming. It wasn't in like IT administration stuff. I refinanced my car. That's how I paid for school. 'Cause I went to the bank and like, "Can I refinance this? I'm trying to do a thing." Like, "Sure, what's your car worth?" "I don't know, you tell me." And they looked it up and they said, "Oh, here's some money. Thank you." And then I promptly wrecked my car. It was upside down on the loan. But whatever, I got me into Novell school and I got my very first cert, which did enable me and got me
Yeah.
started in my IT career. So it was worth it. Think outside the box of how to fund these things. There's a risk there. Understand there's also risk. You're spending money on training. You're gonna have to fight hard to pass the exams and get the certs, and then you gotta have to fight hard to actually get a job. Just because you got a cert, it's not a guaranteed job,
Mhm.
unfortunately. Um, I got an email from, or I got a LinkedIn message from someone who was like, "Hey, I'm CCNA certified. I've been keeping up with the industry. I'm talking to everybody I know. I've had a few interviews. It's just I just can't get that first job. It hasn't worked out yet. What do I do?" And we chatted for a bit, but more to the point is he's CCNA certified. That was work, and he's still struggling to land that job. So even if you do spend that money out of pocket, you can't think of it as I am guaranteed to get a job if I get this cert.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of a journey. It's tough. It can be tough out there, especially here in 2025. Holly, you and I are, I know you're originally South Africa, but you're based in the US now. It's a weird world right now here in the United
Yeah.
States. Yeah, we don't know what's up with a lot of things. Crazy stuff going on with the government, and stock markets are like, I don't know what's happening. And I think some companies maybe are not sure if they want to hire right now because of that, while they kind of wait and see what's really going to happen and how the dust settles and what it means uh, for the world, honestly. So, does your cert guarantee you a gig? Right. No. And so if you spend that money and you go into debt to do it, understand the risk you're taking on. That
Yeah.
is a risky thing.
And especially if it's your first cert, like it's not a expert level where it's a 3% pass rate. There are going to be
Mm,
other people with that same cert applying to the same job. So
yep.
yes, it does give you a leg up, but it's not putting you to the front of the list. Not necessarily, unless you're the only one, but it's unlikely.
Yep.
So it's definitely not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee, but you can't view it like that.
Yep. Yep. All right, Holly, we've been talking for almost an hour. Are there any other big things that we should talk about related to certs?
Yes, what I
Oh,
mentioned earlier about being in person versus remote. I'm assuming you did all of your certs in person, most of
as
them.
in for the exams?
Yes.
Yes, I have done, because that doing remote wasn't much of a thing until COVID,
Yeah.
and I haven't done a cert for the last since the before times. I haven't. Yeah, so no, I haven't had the experience. I've heard stories, and I'll just shut up rather than tell other people's stories. You tell your story of taking tests remotely.
I mean, for the most part, it's been fine. When it's good, it's really good. It's so easy. You follow the rules and everything goes smoothly. However, things sometimes go wrong. And what I quickly learned since I did all 8 remotely is odds are if you're doing a bunch, you're going to run into some problems. I had,
Like,
like, I was sitting like this, and the
yeah.
proctor comes on and pretty much like, get back in the frame. What are you doing? And I was just like bored and taking the exam and resting on my arm. And obviously
Oh
my
man.
face was a little bit to the side.
So
I've
they're
had to,
thinking like you're looking on your phone or something off to the
yep.
side, like looking up an
And
answer.
meanwhile,
Yeah.
I'm here like answering the questions, like, yes, yes. And they pop out of nowhere. You take control of your screen. It's in the
Oh,
moment. It's, yeah, like you can't do anything. Someone's speaking at you and you can't click anything. Your time's running out. I've had fun things. I've had to clear out my entire room, not even a desk. Like, oh, that book is within 3 meters. Please move it. Like, I've got to stay in the frame, never mind
okay.
stand up. So there's a lot
Right.
of preparation that goes into it. And I've had other times where sometimes the system just like almost glitches. One time it just zoomed all the way out and I couldn't click the next button. It was tiny and I just had to like restart the whole thing. And they're like, sorry, nothing we can do, start again.
I've had that experience or similar kind of experiences. Some kind of a problem with the user interface trying to
Yeah,
take the exam where it's like this isn't working. And like you were talking about,
yeah,
some of the exams have like a lab component where you got to
yeah,
do a thing and it wouldn't work right or something like that. As you said, the system would glitch out. It's like this is an
yeah,
expensive test I'm sitting here taking for the thing to not do the thing. So
yeah.
come on. Yeah.
So I think if you are considering between the two, um, also understand your appetite for stress. Because if you are a stressed out exam taker and the proctor comes on in the middle and you can't take control of your own screen or something like that goes wrong and there's not a person to call, it's very stressful. It's a very unpleasant experience. So if that's going to cause you a lot of anxiety, just go somewhere, be in person. It's probably more seamless than the remote experience. But if you are well prepared and you understand the T's and C's, all the T's and C's, make sure you stay in frame, get rid of everything that you could possibly reach for anywhere, and just unplug everything and the rest of it, then go for it. But it's possible that you'll run into some glitches, and you deal with it. You just have to be relaxed and understand that it's just all part of the process. So, yeah.
But
Fun
all of that
times.
goes back to what we were talking about earlier about brain dumps and people that were able to actually record the exam while taking it because they had an in with the testing center, whatever however they managed to get that done. Because any of the testing centers I went to was always carefully monitored with CCTV, and you were in a little cubicle with their usually pretty crappy PC and so on. How you cheat in that scenario, I don't know, but there were plenty of stories of that's how the brain dumps get built. Someone gets in there with a camera, somehow records the whole exam, and then the brain dumps would get built. So anyway, well, Holly, good conversation. Good conversation. I think it's, for me, if I could summarize, if you're early in your career and you want to do certs, they're going to help. They're going to help you with knowledge, which is the biggest reason you should be going after them, to build your knowledge base. And they can also help on some level. They can help differentiate you from other candidates for a particular job in your resume. But not every employer cares about certs. Some do, some don't. It all depends. You got any parting thoughts?
I think also, as someone who's earlier in career, it definitely helps with your credibility. Just to have that, I've done this cert under my belt. Sure, I don't have any experience, or maybe my degree was in something totally different. It does help with that. Okay, this person kind of knows a little bit of what they're talking about. Maybe not everything, but that's really how it helped me as somebody, especially customer facing, to have those certs. It was like, okay, she actually knows something. So that helps a lot.
I agree with that. All right, everybody. We hope this helped you out. If you have questions about this, maybe you want to know about a specific program, Holly and I may or may not have opinions, but you can go to packetpushers.net/follow-up and fill out the very brief form and send us your thoughts, your questions, and we'll do the best we can for you in a future episode. Thanks for listening. This has been N is for Networking. Holly and I are going to chat with you again next week, where we'll explain more jargon, concepts, and big ideas from the world of packets. If you would like to connect with me or Holly, you can do so via LinkedIn or the Packet Pushers Community Slack group. I'm Ethan Banks. Holly is Holly Metlitsky. You can just look for us on LinkedIn. We're going to come right up, hit the connect button, and we'll be happy to connect with you. Please share N is for Networking with your colleagues, your friends, your peers, your mom, and we'd really appreciate that. And just remember that networking isn't hard. Other people figured it out, so you can too.